The boy's hand was ice cold when it grabbed Adrian Bourne's wrist. Adrian froze mid-step, champagne glass halfway to his lips, surrounded by 200 of Manhattan's wealthiest elite in the crystal ballroom of the St. Regis. Orphans from Brightview Children's Home had been invited to mingle with potential donors, smiling, well-rehearsed children in their Sunday best, clutching handmade thank-you cards. But this kid had been hiding behind a marble column for the past hour, watching, waiting. And now his fingers, small, trembling, burning with fever, were wrapped around Adrian's arm like a lifeline. "I just want a mom." 5 words. Barely a whisper. But they detonated something inside Adrian's chest that had been buried for 23 years. The ballroom noise, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the string quartet, vanished. All Adrian could hear was his own heartbeat and the shallow, ragged breathing of the kid staring up at him with eyes too old for his face. 7, maybe 8 years old. Dark hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. Cheeks flushed pink despite the frigid air conditioning. He was sick. Visibly, undeniably sick. "Hey there," Adrian managed, his voice coming out rougher than intended. He crouched down, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. "What's your name?" "Elliot Moss." The kid swayed slightly, like standing upright was taking everything he had. "They said you're the richest man here. They said you can do anything." Adrian's jaw tightened. Around them, conversations continued. Donors posed for photos with photogenic orphans. A woman in a diamond necklace worth more than a house laughed at something her husband said. Nobody was paying attention to the sick kid clinging to the billionaire's sleeve. Nobody ever paid attention to the sick ones. "Elliot," Adrian said carefully, "where's your caseworker?" "She's talking to the lady with the big hat." Elliot's grip tightened. His knuckles were white. "Please don't make me go back yet. Please. His voice cracked. "I just want someone to want me." And there it was. The thing Adrian had spent 2 decades trying to outrun, staring him in the face with fever-bright eyes and a death grip on his Armani suit. "Hey, beautiful people. Welcome back to the channel. ***, I'm so glad you're here for this one. It's going to wreck you in the best way possible. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Nebraska? New York? London? Somewhere I've never heard of? Tell me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor and smash that button right now, because this story, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Now back to Adrian and Elliot, because things are about to get real. Adrian Bourne hadn't become a billionaire by age 35 by being soft. He'd clawed his way up from nothing, a foster kid who'd aged out of the system at 18 with $200 and a chip on his shoulder the size of Manhattan. He'd built Bourne Industries from the ground up, turned software innovation into an empire, and learned early that sentiment was a luxury he couldn't afford. But this kid, this sick, desperate kid asking for something Adrian himself had spent his whole childhood wanting? He was kryptonite. "How long have you been sick?" Adrian asked quietly. Elliot's eyes darted toward the crowd, then back. "Since before. Since always, maybe. They said it's my heart. They said it's expensive to fix." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. Like he'd already accepted his fate. 3 families almost took me. But then they found out and they changed their minds. Yeah. Elliot's voice went small. Every time. Adrian's hand curled into a fist. Around them, the charity gala continued its carefully choreographed dance of wealth and performance. This event raised millions every year.
Milio.
And yet this kid, this one sick kid who needed help more than anyone in this room, had been rejected 3 times because his medical bills were too high. The irony was sharp enough to draw blood. Elliot Moss? A woman's. As he pushed through the ballroom doors into the cool night air, Elliot's small voice reached him. "Are you really going to keep me?" Adrian looked down at the kid in his arms, at this unexpected twist of fate that had grabbed his wrist and changed everything. "Yeah," he said. "I really am." He didn't see the woman watching from the shadows near the coat check. Didn't see the way her hand went to her mouth, or the tears that sprang to her eyes, or the way she pulled out her phone and made a call. He didn't know, Yet, that Elliot Moss had just done what no one else in Adrian Bourne's life had ever managed to do. He'd cracked open the vault. And some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The emergency room at Mount Sinai smelled like antiseptic and broken promises. Adrian sat in a plastic chair that was too small for him, elbows on his knees, watching through the glass partition as doctors swarmed around Elliot's bed. The kid had passed out in the car. 1 minute he'd been talking, asking Adrian if he had a dog, if his house was big, if he liked pizza, and the next his eyes had rolled back and his small body had gone limp. Adrian had never driven so fast in his life. "Mr. Bourne?" A doctor emerged from the exam room, tablet in hand. She was young, maybe early 30s, with exhausted eyes and her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun. Dr. Sarah Connor, her badge read. "I'm the attending cardiologist. You're Elliot's guardian." The word felt foreign in his mouth. "As of about an hour ago. Pending paperwork." Dr. Connor's eyebrows went up, but she didn't comment. His fever spiked to 103. "We're getting it down now, but Mr. Bourne, this child is in critical condition. His congenital heart defect has progressed significantly. Without intervention, he dies. Within 18 months, yes." She pulled up an image on her tablet, a scan of Elliot's heart, chambers misshapen, valves struggling. "He needs valve replacement surgery, and he needs it soon. The good news is he's an excellent candidate. The bad news is the cost and the wait list at most hospitals." Money isn't an issue. Adrian stood, all 6'2" of him suddenly filling the space. "And neither is the wait list. I want the best cardiac surgeon in the country. I want surgery scheduled within the week. Whatever strings need to be pulled, whatever donations need to be made, consider it done." Dr. Connor stared at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "I'll make some calls." "Do that." Adrian moved toward the exam room. "Can I see him?" "He's sleeping, but yes." "Mr. Bourne?" She waited until he looked back. "What you're doing for this child, it's extraordinary." Adrian didn't respond. He just pushed through the door. Elliot looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, dwarfed by machines and monitors. Someone had changed him into a gown covered in cartoon bears. And 4 dripped clear fluid into his arm. His dark hair, no longer plastered with sweat, fell across his forehead in soft waves. He looked like any other kid. Innocent, fragile, deserving of everything the world had denied him. Adrian pulled a chair close and sat down heavily. His phone buzzed, probably his assistant, probably his lawyer, probably the dozen other people who would have questions about what the hell he'd just done. He ignored it. Instead, he studied the kid who'd changed his life in the span of 5 words. "I just want a mom." Adrian knew that ache. Knew it down to his bones. He'd been 6 when his mother died, car accident, drunk driver, gone in an instant. His father, already an alcoholic, had spiraled completely. By the time Adrian was 7, he'd been in the system. By the time he was 8, he'd learned that nobody wanted to adopt an angry kid with trauma. By the time he was 10, he'd stopped hoping. He'd promised himself, back then, that if he ever made something of himself, he'd never let another kid feel that way. And then he'd gotten so buried in building his empire that he'd forgotten. Until tonight. "You look like you're trying to solve a complex equation." Adrian's head snapped up. A woman stood in the doorway, late 20s, with copper-red hair pulled into a ponytail and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. She wore jeans and a leather jacket, completely out of place in the sterile hospital environment. There was something about her that screamed trouble. "Who are you?" Adrian asked flatly. "Natasha Ripley." She stepped inside without invitation, hands in her pockets. "I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. Ms. Chen called me." Her gaze moved to Elliot, and something softened in her expression. "I'm here to make sure this isn't some billionaire impulse buy that ends with a traumatized kid back in the system when you get bored." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You think I'd do that to him?" "I don't know what you'd do. That's the problem." Natasha crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. "Look, Mr. Bourne, I've seen this before. Rich person at a charity event, emotional moment, big promises. Then reality hits. The kid wakes up screaming from nightmares. The medical appointments pile up. The cameras lose interest. And suddenly the guardian realizes they didn't sign up for actual parenting. I'm not most people.
No.
She tilted her head. Then tell me, why him? Why this kid? Tonight, out of the hundreds of children in the system who need homes. Adrian looked back at Elliot. The kid's chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, machines beeping softly beside him. Because he asked, Adrian said quietly. Because he had the courage to walk up to a stranger and say the one thing everyone told him not to say. Because 3 families looked at his medical bills and decided he wasn't worth the investment. His voice went hard. And because I know exactly what it feels like to be the kid nobody wants. Natasha was quiet for a moment. When Adrian looked at her again, something had shifted in her expression. You were in the system. Aged out at 18. No family, no safety net, no backup plan. Just me and a lot of anger. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I built Bourne Industries because I had to survive. I became a billionaire because I was too stubborn to fail. But all of it, every dollar, every success, it's been empty. Because I've been building monuments to prove I matter when what I should have been doing was mattering to someone. That's very philosophical, Natasha said. But philosophy doesn't change diapers or sit through parent-teacher conferences or hold a kid's hand when he's terrified. You're right. Adrian met her gaze directly. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to do bedtime stories or pack lunches or any of the normal things parents do.
But I know how to fight.
I know how to refuse to give up. And I know how to love someone who's been told they're unlovable. He gestured to Elliot. That kid grabbed my wrist and changed my entire life. So, yeah, maybe I'm making a mistake. Maybe I'm in over my head. But I'd rather drown trying than walk away and spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Natasha studied him for a long moment, then sighed. You're either the real deal or the best liar I've ever met. Give me a chance to prove which one. That's what the home study is for. She pushed off the wall. I'll be watching, Mr. Bourne.
Closely.
One red flag, one sign that Elliot isn't your priority. He will be. And I'll have him removed so fast your head will spin. She softened slightly. But for what it's worth, I hope you mean it. Because that kid deserves someone who'll fight for him. She left, the door swinging shut behind her. Adrian turned back to Elliot, who stirred slightly but didn't wake. Without thinking, Adrian reached out and gently brushed the hair off the kid's forehead. I mean it, he whispered. I promise. The next morning, Adrian's penthouse apartment looked like a law firm had exploded inside it. His assistant, a terrifyingly efficient woman named Claire Dunphy, who'd been with him since the early days, had arrived at 6 a.m. with 3 lawyers and enough paperwork to build a small city. Home study application, she said, dropping a stack of forms on his glass dining table. Background check authorization. Financial disclosure. Medical clearance. Character references. And that's just for starters. Adrian, running on 2 hours of sleep and his 4th espresso, signed where she pointed. The good news, one of the lawyers said, is that your financial stability isn't in question. The bad news is that single male adoption cases face additional scrutiny, especially for younger children. Then we address the scrutiny head-on. Adrian kept signing. What else? Your schedule. Claire pulled up a calendar on her tablet. You have board meetings, investor calls, product launches. Your life is not conducive to raising a child, Adrian. Then we change my life. Everyone in the room stopped and stared at him. I'm sorry, what? Claire blinked. You're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. You can't just. Watch me. Adrian set down his pen. Cancel everything non-essential for the next 6 months. Delegate whatever can be delegated. The board can handle day-to-day operations. That's what I pay them for. My priority is Elliot. Adrian, Claire said carefully, are you absolutely sure about this? Because once you start, once you commit, you can't just undo it when it gets hard. Adrian thought about Elliot's hand on his wrist. About the quiet desperation in those fever-bright eyes. About the way the kid had asked for something so simple, just a mom, just someone to want him, and how that had shattered every wall Adrian had spent decades building. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. If you're loving this story so far, drop a quick comment and let me know what you think of Adrian's decision. Would you have done the same? And hey, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because part 3 is going to throw you for a loop. ***. Claire exchanged glances with the lawyers, then nodded slowly. Okay, then we have work to do. They worked through the morning. By noon, Adrian had signed his name so many times his hand cramped. Applications had been filed. Phone calls had been made. Wheels were in motion. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Connor. **surgery scheduled for Friday. Dr. Maxwell Chen flying in from Boston. Best in the country. Adrian texted back. **whatever he needs. Thank you. **. He was about to set the phone down when another message came through. Unknown number. You can't save him. Adrian's blood went cold. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who knows the truth about Elliot Moss. And if you're smart, you'll walk away before you learn it too. The message deleted itself as Adrian watched, vanishing from his screen like it had never existed. He stared at his phone, ice forming in his gut. What the hell did that mean? Adrian didn't sleep that night. He sat in his home office, the threatening text burned into his brain, running background checks on everyone connected to Elliot Moss. Brightview Children's Home. Ms. Chun. The previous families who'd backed out of adoption. He called in favors from private investigators, threw money at problems, demanded answers. Nothing. Everyone came back clean, which meant whoever sent that message knew how to stay hidden. At 4 a.m., his phone rang. Dr. Connor. Mr. Bourne, you need to come to the hospital.
Now.
Adrian's heart stopped. What happened? Elliot woke up asking for you.
A pause.
He's having a panic attack. We've tried everything, but he won't calm down. He keeps saying you changed your mind. Adrian was in his car before she finished the sentence. He found Elliot curled in a ball in the hospital bed, sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. 2 nurses stood helplessly nearby. Dr. Connor was trying to talk him down, but the kid wasn't hearing anything. Elliot. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, sitting on the edge of the bed. Hey, look at me. Elliot's head snapped up, tears streaming down his face. You left. I went home to start the paperwork. Adrian kept his voice steady, even though seeing the kid like this was ripping him apart. I'm here now. Everyone leaves. Elliot's voice cracked. They always leave. They say they want me, and then they find out I'm broken and they leave. I'm not everyone. You will. Elliot hugged his knees tighter. When you see how much medicine costs, when I have nightmares, when I'm too sick to go to school, when you realize I'm too much work. Stop. Adrian reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and put his hand on Elliot's shoulder. Listen to me very carefully. I don't break promises. Ever. I said I was going to adopt you, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. Your surgery is scheduled for Friday. After that, you're coming home with me. And, yeah, it's going to be hard. Yeah, there'll be medicine and doctor's appointments and probably nightmares. But we'll figure it out together. Elliot stared at him, desperate hope warring with crushing fear in his eyes. Why do you even want me? Because you're brave enough to ask for what you need. Because you didn't give up even when everyone else gave up on you. Because Adrian's throat tightened. Because when I was your age, I would have given anything for someone to fight for me. And now I can be that person for you. For a long moment, Elliot didn't move. Then, slowly, he launched himself forward and wrapped his arms around Adrian's neck. Adrian froze. He couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged him. Couldn't remember the last time he'd let someone get close enough to try. Then, awkwardly at first, he wrapped his arms around the kid and held on. Elliot sobbed into his shoulder. Adrian just sat there, one hand on the kid's back, and let him. Dr. Connor quietly ushered the nurses out, giving them privacy. I'm scared, Elliot whispered eventually. Me too, Adrian admitted.
Really?
Really. I've never been a dad before. I'm probably going to mess it up 100 different ways. but I'm going to show up every single day and try anyway. He pulled back. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. She started to walk away, then paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Bourne, I hope you prove me wrong about rich people.
She left.
Adrian stood in the empty hallway, mind racing. Someone was targeting Elliot. Someone didn't want him adopted, which meant there was something about Elliot's past, something someone wanted to stay buried. He pulled out his phone and texted his head of security. I need you to dig into a child's background. Elliot Moss, age 7, currently at Brightview Children's Home. I want to know everything. Where he came from, who his parents were, why someone might want to keep him in the system. And I want it yesterday. The response came immediately. On it, boss. Adrian was about to pocket his phone when it rang. Unknown number. Different from the threatening text, but still unknown. He answered. Who is this? Mr. Bourne. A woman's voice, soft and nervous. My name is Isabella Swan. I need to talk to you about Elliot. Adrian's blood went cold. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're making a terrible mistake. She was breathing fast like she was scared. Or running. Elliot isn't who you think he is. His past. There are things you don't know, things that could destroy you if they come to light. What things? I can't tell you over the phone. Meet me. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Central Park, Bethesda Fountain. Come alone. Her voice dropped to barely above a whisper. And Mr. Bourne? If you care about that boy at all, don't bring security. Don't tell anyone you're meeting me. Because if the wrong people find out I'm talking to you, we're both dead. The line went dead. Adrian stared at his phone, adrenaline spiking through his system. What the hell had he just walked into? The next morning, Adrian arrived at Brightview Children's Home unannounced. Ms. Chen looked startled when he walked through the door, then nervous. Mr. Bourne, I wasn't expecting you. I want to see Elliot's file. Everything you have on him. Birth records, medical history, how he ended up in the system. Adrian didn't bother with pleasantries.
Now.
Ms. Chen hesitated. Sir, those records are confidential. I'm his legal guardian. Pending but still legal. Which means I have a right to access his information. Adrian leaned against her desk. Unless there's a reason you don't want me to see it? No, of course not. But her hands shook slightly as she pulled out a filing cabinet key. I'll need to make copies. Privacy laws. I'll wait. She disappeared into a back office. Adrian used the opportunity to look around. The children's home was clean but worn, the kind of place that ran on a shoestring budget and dedicated staff who cared more than they were paid to. Photos of smiling kids lined the walls. Artwork hung on every available surface. One drawing caught his eye. A crayon sketch of a house with a red door, flowers in the garden, and 2 stick figures holding hands. One big, one small. At the bottom, in a child's handwriting, my forever family, Elliot. Adrian's chest tightened. Here. Ms. Chan returned with a manila folder, handing it over reluctantly. That's everything we have. Mr. Bourne, I should warn you. Elliot's past is complicated. Complicated how? She bit her lip. He was found abandoned at a hospital when he was 3 days old. No note, no identification, nothing. We don't know who his parents are. He's been in the system his entire life. What about the heart condition? Congenital. He was born with it.
She paused.
Mr. Bourne, there's something else. About 6 months ago, someone tried to adopt Elliot through private channels. They bypassed all the normal procedures, offered a significant amount of money to expedite the process. But when we started asking questions about their background, they disappeared. Adrian's instinct screamed. You have a name?
No.
The paperwork was filed under a shell company. By the time we tried to investigate, the company had dissolved. Ms. Chen's voice dropped. It was suspicious enough that we flagged it with CPS, but nothing ever came of it. Adrian opened the folder, scanning through medical reports, psychological evaluations, foster placement records. Everything painted the picture of a sick kid who'd been failed by every system designed to protect him. But there was nothing that explained why someone would threaten people who tried to adopt him. Unless the threat wasn't about Elliot at all. Unless it was about who his parents were. At 1:50 p.m., Adrian stood at Bethesda Fountain in Central Park, watching tourists take photos and street performers entertain crowds. He'd told his security team he was taking a personal day. He'd left his smartwatch at home. He'd done everything the mysterious Isabella Swan had asked. Now he just had to wait. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman approached. Mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She looked ordinary. Forgettable, which probably meant she was anything but Mr. Bourne. She didn't offer her hand. Thank you for coming. You said Elliot's past could destroy me. Start talking. Isabella glanced around nervously, then gestured toward a quieter path. They walked in silence for a moment before she spoke. 7 years ago, I was a nurse at Mount Sinai. I was working the night shift in labor and delivery when a woman came in. No ID, no insurance, paid in cash. She was in active labor, and she was terrified. Isabella's voice shook. She gave birth to a baby boy. Healthy, except for a heart murmur. She held him for exactly 10 minutes. Then she begged me to take him. To make sure he was safe. To make sure no one ever found him. Adrian's heart pounded. Elliot. She said his father would kill them both if he knew the baby existed. She said she'd committed unforgivable sins, that people were hunting her, that her child deserved a life without her shadow hanging over him. Isabella stopped walking, turning to face Adrian. She made me promise to leave him somewhere he'd be found and cared for. So I took him to a different hospital, left him in a safe place, and walked away. Who was she? That's the problem, Mr. Bourne.
I didn't know then.
But I know now. Isabella pulled out her phone, showing him a photo. A news article from 7 years ago. A woman's face stared back at him. Asterisk, notorious crime boss Vincent Corleone's associate found dead in apparent suicide. Authorities suspect foul play. Asterisk. The woman in the photo was young, beautiful, and clearly terrified in her mugshot. Her name was Elena Volkov, Isabella whispered. She was a bookkeeper for the Corleone crime family. She knew where all the money was, where all the bodies were buried. And when she got pregnant with Vincent Corleone's child, she knew he'd never let her keep it. Adrian's world tilted. Elliot is Vincent Corleone's son. Yes. Isabella's voice cracked. And if Vincent finds out that boy is alive, he'll either kill him to eliminate the liability or use him as leverage against the people Elena was protecting. Either way, that child dies. Adrian stood frozen, the weight of what he'd just learned crushing down on him. Oh man, this just got complicated. Drop a comment if you saw that twist coming because, trust me, it gets even crazier from here. And if you're new here, subscribe now because you are not going to want to miss what happens next. Asterisk, asterisk. Elliot wasn't just a sick orphan. He was the son of one of the most dangerous crime bosses in New York. And Adrian had just painted a target on both their backs. Isabella grabbed his arm. The families who tried to adopt him? They weren't scared off by medical bills. They were scared off by people connected to Vincent. People who've been watching that boy for years, making sure he stays lost. Her grip tightened. You need to walk away, Mr. Bourne. Cancel the adoption. Forget you ever met Elliot Moss. Because if you don't, Vincent Corleone will come for you both. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. Adrian, what? Claire started. Expedite the adoption. I don't care what it takes, what laws need to be bent, what judges need to be called. I want full custody of Elliot Moss by Friday. He kept his eyes on Isabella, who had gone pale. And get me every piece of information we have on Vincent Corleone and the Corleone family operations. Financial records, property holdings, known associates. Everything. Adrian, what's going on? I'm going to war, Adrian said calmly. And I intend to win. He ended the call. Isabella stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You can't fight Vincent Corleone. No one fights Vincent Corleone and survives. Then I'll be the first. Adrian started walking back toward the fountain. Thank you for the information, Miss Swan. I suggest you disappear for a while. If Vincent's people find out you talked to me, You're right, you're both dead. Mr. Bourne, wait. But Adrian was already gone, striding through Central Park with purpose in every step. He'd promised Elliot he wouldn't give up. And Adrian Bourne never broke his promises. Even if keeping this one might kill him. Adrian's penthouse had been transformed into a war room. 3 computer monitors displayed financial records. Whiteboards covered in notes about Corleone family operations lined one wall. His security team, 6 former military personnel he trusted with his life, stood around the conference table, listening as his head of security, Jack Traven, laid out the situation. Vincent Corleone runs most of the illegal gambling and money laundering operations in New York, Jack said, pulling up a photo of a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Distinguished. Dangerous. He's been untouchable for 20 years. The FBI's tried to build cases against him 4 times. Witnesses disappear. Evidence vanishes. He's got people everywhere, police, courts, city government. Weaknesses. Adrian asked. He's paranoid. Doesn't trust anyone after his bookkeeper, Elena Volkov, died 7 years ago. Rumor is she was skimming money, planning to testify against him. Jack paused. No one knows what happened to her baby. Until now. Does Vincent know Elliot's alive? If he did, the kid would already be dead. Or being raised as his heir. Jack pulled up another file. But here's the problem. You just filed adoption papers. That paperwork goes through the system. If Vincent has people monitoring adoptions like Ms. Swan suggested, they'll know within 48 hours. Then we move faster. Adrian stood, pacing. What about Elena's family? Anyone she might have trusted. Parents died when she was 16.
No siblings.
But, Jack hesitated. There's one person. Dominic Toretto. He was her handler when she first started working for the FBI. Adrian stopped. She was an informant? For 6 months before she died. That's classified information, by the way. I had to call in serious favors. Jack pulled up a photo of a man in his 40s, muscular, with intense eyes. Toretto went rogue after Elena's death. Left the FBI, disappeared. Word is he's been trying to take down the Corleone family on his own ever since. Find him, Adrian ordered. I want a meeting. Boss, that's
Non negotiable.
If anyone knows how to protect Elliot, it's the man who tried to protect his mother. The hospital was quiet when Adrian arrived at midnight. He'd come straight from the war room, needed to see with his own eyes that Elliot was safe. The boy was sleeping peacefully, his small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, color finally back in his cheeks. Adrian pulled a chair close and sat down, exhaustion crashing over him. You're here late. He turned to find Natasha standing in the doorway, her red hair loose around her shoulders, no longer in her usual professional attire but jeans and a sweater. She looked softer. Younger. Human. Couldn't sleep, Adrian admitted. Natasha walked in, studying him. You look like hell. Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you ate? Slept. She sat down in the chair beside him. You can't take care of him if you don't take care of yourself.
Ai fine.
You're not. She was quiet for a moment. I did some digging today. Into your background. Want to know what I found? Adrian tensed. I'm sure it's all in the adoption paperwork. The facts are. But facts don't tell the whole story. Natasha turned to face him. You were in 7 different foster homes between ages 6 and 18. 3 of them filed complaints about your behavioral issues. You ran away twice. You got into fights. You were angry and hurt and completely alone. Is there a point to this? The point is that you survived anyway. You put yourself through community college, working 3 jobs. You built a tech company from nothing. You became one of the most successful people in the country. Her voice softened. And instead of using that success to forget where you came from, you're using it to save a kid who reminds you of yourself. That's not reckless, Adrian. That's brave. Something in Adrian's chest cracked. He wasn't used to people seeing him, really seeing him. I'm not brave, he said quietly.
I'm terrified.
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I can keep him safe. I don't know if, he stopped, jaw tight. If you're enough? Natasha finished gently. Adrian didn't answer. You know what I see when I look at Elliot? Natasha gestured to the sleeping boy. I see a kid who's been rejected over and over, who's learned that hope is dangerous. And then you showed up. You promised him something nobody else has promised, that he matters, that he's worth fighting for. She met Adrian's eyes. Don't underestimate how powerful that is. Adrian looked at Elliot, then back at Natasha. In the dim hospital light, with her guard down, she was beautiful. Not just physically, though he noticed that, but in the way she cared. The way she fought for kids who had no one else. Why do you do this job? He asked. Same reason you're here. I know what it's like to be invisible. She smiled slightly. Foster care, age 5 to 17. Got lucky with my last family, they actually wanted me. But I remember the ones who didn't. The ones who saw me as a paycheck or a burden. Her expression hardened. I became a social worker, so other kids would have someone fighting for them. Someone who won't let them disappear. You're good at it. You're not so bad yourself. She stood up. Get some sleep, Adrian. You've got a long road ahead. She started to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be a good father. You care too much not to be. Then she was gone, leaving Adrian alone with his thoughts and the steady beeping of Elliot's heart monitor. Thursday morning, Adrian got the call he'd been waiting for. Found Toretto, Jack said. He's willing to meet. Tonight, 8 p.m., warehouse in Red Hook. He said come alone, or don't come at all.
Done.
Boss, this could be a trap. Then I'll spring it. Text me the address. He hung up and immediately called Dr. Connor. How's Elliot? Stable. Surgery's still scheduled for tomorrow morning. Dr. Chin from Boston arrived last night. He's reviewing the scans now.
She paused.
Mr. Bourne, I have to ask. There are rumors circulating about increased security around Elliot's room. Is there something I should know? Adrian made a split-second decision. There may be people who want to interfere with his treatment. I've hired private security, as a precaution. If anyone tries to access Elliot without my explicit permission, anyone, you call me immediately. Understood? Understood. Dr. Connor's voice was tight. Adrian, what have you gotten this boy into? I'm getting him out of it, Adrian said. That's what matters. He ended the call and headed to the hospital. Elliot was awake when Adrian arrived, sitting up in bed and drawing on a notepad a nurse had given him. He looked up when Adrian walked in, and his whole face lit up. You came? Of course I came. Adrian sat down on the edge of the bed. What are you drawing? Elliot held up the notepad. It was a picture of a man and a boy, stick figures holding hands in front of a tall building. This is you and me. At your house. After I'm better. Adrian's throat tightened. That's a great drawing. The nurse said my surgery is tomorrow. Elliot's voice got smaller. She said it's dangerous. It is. But Dr. Chin is the best cardiac surgeon in the country. He's done this operation hundreds of times. Adrian met Elliot's eyes. And I'll be right there when you wake up. I promise. What if something goes wrong? Then we deal with it together. But, Elliot. Adrian reached out and ruffled the kid's hair gently. Nothing's going to go wrong. You're strong. You're a fighter. You're going to get through this surgery, and then you're coming home with me. Elliot was quiet for a moment. Then, can I ask you something? Anything. Why me? Really? The kid's eyes were too old, too knowing. I heard the nurses talking. They said you're really important, that you could have any kid in the world. So, why pick the sick one? Drop a comment if this is hitting you in the feels. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe so you don't miss the next part, because tomorrow's surgery scene is going to be intense. Asterisk, asterisk. Adrian considered his answer carefully. This kid deserved the truth. When I was your age, I was in the hospital too. Not for my heart, for pneumonia. I was really sick and I was alone because I didn't have a family. I remember lying in that bed thinking that if I died, no one would even notice. No one would care. He paused. That's the worst feeling in the world, Elliot. Thinking you don't matter. Yeah, Elliot whispered. It is. So when you grabbed my wrist at that gala and asked for Mom, I saw myself. I saw that scared kid who just wanted someone to care. And I thought, maybe I can't go back and save that kid. But I can save you. Adrian's voice roughened. You're not the sick one, Elliot. You're the brave one. The one who didn't give up even when everyone else did. That's why I picked you. Tears were streaming down Elliot's face.
I'm scared.
Me too. But we're going to be scared together. Deal? Elliot nodded, then threw his arms around Adrian's neck. Adrian held him, this small, sick, impossibly brave kid who'd changed his entire life in the span of 5 words. He didn't hear the door open. Didn't see Natasha standing there, watching them with tears in her own eyes. Didn't know that in a warehouse across the city, Vincent Corleone was looking at a photograph of Elliot and saying, "Find out everything about this Adrian Bourne. And find out why he wants my son." The Red Hook warehouse smelled like oil and old wood. Adrian arrived at 7:50, alone as instructed, and waited in the shadows. At exactly 8 p.m., a figure emerged from behind a rusted shipping container. Dominic Toretto was exactly like his photo, muscular, intense, dangerous. He moved like someone who'd seen combat and survived. "You're Bourne," Dominic said. It wasn't a question. "You're Toretto. You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the stupidest." Dominic crossed his arms.
Vincent Corleone's son.
"You actually think you can protect him?" "I don't think. I know." Dominic laughed, but there was no humor in it. Elena thought that too. She thought if she hid the baby, kept him secret, Vincent would never find him. You know what happened to her. She died. She was murdered. Made to look like suicide, but I know better. Vincent found out she was talking to the FBI. Found out she was pregnant. And he eliminated the problem. Dominic's expression darkened. "I tried to protect her. I failed. I've been trying to take down Vincent ever since, and I've gotten nowhere. So tell me, Mr. Billionaire, what makes you think you can do what I couldn't?" "Because I'm not trying to take him down. I'm just trying to keep Elliot safe." "Same thing. Vincent can't let that boy live. He's a liability. Evidence. A weakness." Dominic stepped closer. "The second Vincent knows Elliot exists, he'll come for him. And nothing, no amount of money, no private security, no adoption papers, will stop him. Then I'll make sure Vincent never finds out." Too late. Dominic pulled out his phone, showing Adrian a photo. It was a screenshot of adoption paperwork. Elliot's name. Adrian's name. Filed yesterday. Adrian's blood ran cold. "Where did you get that?" "Vincent's people are already digging into you. They don't know yet that Elliot is the boy Elena hid, but they're curious why a billionaire suddenly wants to adopt a sick orphan." Dominic pocketed his phone. "You've got maybe 48 hours before they connect the dots. After that, you're both targets. Then help me." Adrian met Dominic's eyes. "You said you failed Elena. Don't fail her son." Dominic was silent for a long moment. "What do you want?" "Information. Protection. Anything that gives us an advantage." Adrian's voice was steel. "I'm not backing down. I made a promise to that kid, and I'm keeping it. But I can't do it alone." Dominic studied him, then slowly nodded. "Elena was a good person. She deserved better than what Vincent gave her. And her son deserves a chance." He pulled out a business card, just a phone number, nothing else. "You call this number if you're in trouble. I can't promise I can save you, but I can promise I'll try." Adrian took the card. "That's all I'm asking. One more thing." Dominic's expression hardened. "If it comes down to you or the kid, you save the kid. No heroics, no last stands. Elena died protecting him. Don't make her sacrifice meaningless." "I won't." They stood in silence for a moment, 2 men bound by their failure to save the same woman, now united in protecting her son. Then Dominic disappeared back into the shadows, leaving Adrian alone in the warehouse with the weight of what was coming crushing down on him. 48 hours. That's all the time they had before Vincent Corleone came for Elliot. And Adrian still had to get the kid through open-heart surgery first. Friday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Adrian stood outside the surgical prep room at 5 a.m., watching through the window as nurses prepared Elliot for surgery. The kid looked impossibly small on the gurney, wearing a hospital gown that swallowed him whole. He was trying to be brave. Adrian could see it in the set of his jaw, the way he wasn't crying even though his hands were shaking. Dr. Chin appeared beside Adrian, surgical cap already in place. "We're ready. This is a 4-hour procedure, possibly longer depending on what we find. The valve replacement is straightforward, but given the progression of his condition—" "Save him," Adrian interrupted. "Whatever it takes." Dr. Chin nodded once. "We will." They wheeled Elliot out. The kid's eyes found Adrian immediately. "Hey," Adrian said, walking beside the gurney. "Remember what we talked about?" "You'll be here when I wake up," Elliot whispered. "I'll be here. I promise." Adrian squeezed his hand. "You're going to do great, kid. I'll see you on the other side." Elliot nodded, but his grip tightened. "Adrian." "Yeah. If something happens, if I don't make it." "Don't." Adrian's voice cracked. "Don't say that. I just want you to know that these last few days were the best days of my life. Because for the first time, someone wanted me." Tears slipped down Elliot's cheeks. "Thank you for that." Adrian couldn't speak. He just held the kid's hand until the surgical doors closed between them, taking Elliot away. Then he stood there, alone in the hallway, and felt the full weight of what he'd promised. What he was risking. What he could lose. "Adrian." Natasha appeared at his elbow, 2 cups of coffee in hand. She pressed one into his palm.
Come on.
"Waiting room. You're not doing this alone." The waiting room became a prison. Adrian paced. Sat down. Stood up. Paced again. Natasha sat quietly in the corner, watching him, not trying to fill the silence with empty reassurances. At hour 2, Jack called. "Boss, we've got a problem." Adrian's blood went cold. "What happened?" Vincent's people identified Elliot. They found Elena's hospital records from 7 years ago. "They know." Jack's voice was tight. "And there's more. Vincent's on his way to the hospital right now. He's got 6 men with him." "How long?" 20 minutes. Maybe less." Adrian looked at the surgical board. Elliot had been in surgery for 2 hours. They needed at least 2 more. "Lock down the floor," Adrian ordered. "No one gets in or out without my authorization. I want security at every access point. And get Dominic here now." "Already on it." "Boss, Vincent's not going to just walk away. If he's coming here, he's coming to take his son. Then he's going to be disappointed." Adrian ended the call and turned to Natasha. "I need you to leave."
Now.
Her eyes widened. "What's happening?" "Something dangerous. And I won't put you in the middle of it." He gripped her shoulders. "Please, Natasha. Trust me and go." "I'm not leaving that boy. He's in surgery. He's safe. But out here?" Adrian's voice dropped. "Vincent Corleone is coming. If you stay, you become a target." "I can't. I won't let that happen to you." Natasha stared at him, and something shifted in her expression. "You're not just protecting Elliot. You're protecting me." "Yes."
Why?
Because in the past 4 days, she'd become more than just a social worker evaluating his fitness to parent. She'd become someone he trusted. Someone who saw him, really saw him, and didn't run. Someone who made him feel less alone. But he didn't have time to explain that. Not with Vincent minutes away. "Because you matter," Adrian said simply. "Now please, go." Natasha held his gaze for one more moment, then nodded. "Don't die, Adrian Bourne. That kid needs you." She kissed his cheek, quick, unexpected, electric, and then she was gone. Adrian stood frozen for 3 seconds, his hand going to where her lips had been, then forced himself to focus. Vincent Corleone was coming for his son. And Adrian was the only thing standing in his way. Vincent Corleone walked into Mount Sinai Hospital like he owned it. 6 men flanked him, expensive suits hiding expensive weapons. Security tried to stop them at the entrance. Vincent smiled, said something Adrian couldn't hear, and suddenly security was stepping aside. Money.
Fear. Corruption.
Vincent wielded all 3 like weapons. Adrian met him at the elevator bank on the surgical floor, flanked by his own security team. Jack stood to his right, hand inside his jacket. The tension was a living thing. Mr. Bourne. Vincent was in his 60s but looked 50, with silver hair and the kind of cold eyes that had watched men die without flinching. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I don't know what you're talking about. Vincent smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Don't insult my intelligence. I know you're attempting to adopt a boy named Elliot. I know that boy is my son. I know he's in surgery right now. He took a step closer. And I know that you're going to step aside and let me take him home where he belongs. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Vincent's smile vanished. You're a smart man, Mr. Bourne. Smart enough to know that you can't win this fight. I have more money, more power, more connections. I own half the judges in this city. I have police on my payroll. You're a self-made billionaire, impressive. But you're out of your depth. Maybe. But I made a promise to that kid. Adrian's voice was steel. And I don't break promises. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Vincent gestured to his men. Here's what's going to happen. My son is going to recover from his surgery. Then he's coming home with me. You're going to sign whatever papers are necessary to make that happen. And in exchange, I'll let you walk away with your life and your company intact. And if I refuse? Vincent's expression went flat.
Deadly.
Then I'll destroy everything you've built. Your company, your reputation, your life. And when there's nothing left, when you're broken and desperate and alone, I'll still take my son. The only difference is how much you lose in the process. Adrian met his gaze without flinching. He's not your son. You lost that right when you had his mother killed. The silence that followed was deafening. Vincent's men tensed. Jack's hand went to his weapon. Adrian's security team shifted, ready. Then Vincent smiled again, and it was worse than his anger. Elena talked, I see. What else did she tell you? That she loved me? That she was going to testify against me? He laughed. She was a liability. A weakness. I don't allow weaknesses. She was a person. And she died protecting her son from you. She died because she betrayed me. Vincent's voice went cold. And now you're making the same mistake. I'm going to buy you time to run. He pushed past Jack into the hallway, leaving Natasha and Elliot behind, knowing it might be the last time he ever saw them. Because Vincent Corleone was coming. And Adrian Bourne was done running. The hallway erupted into chaos. Adrian stood at the junction between the recovery wing and the main corridor, watching Vincent's men pour out of the elevator. 10 of them, just like Jack had said. Professional. Armed. Moving with military precision. Behind him, he heard the service elevator doors close, Natasha and Elliot escaping to safety. That's all that mattered. They had maybe 3 minutes before Vincent's men realized their target was gone. Adrian needed to give them 5. Looking for someone? Adrian called out, stepping into full view. The men stopped. The lead operative, buzz cut, cold eyes, hand inside his jacket, spoke into a radio. Target spotted. Floor 3, recovery wing. Tell Vincent I'm not signing anything, Adrian said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. And tell him if he wants Elliot, he'll have to go through me first. Buzz Cut smiled. It wasn't pleasant. That can be arranged. They moved forward. Adrian held his ground, even as every instinct screamed at him to run. Then Jack appeared from a side corridor, flanked by 4 of Adrian's security team. You boys lost. The tension ratcheted up another notch. Weapons were drawn on both sides. Hospital staff were screaming, running, diving into rooms and slamming doors. Stand down, Buzz Cut ordered. We're only here for the kid. Nobody else has to get hurt. Nobody's getting the kid, Jack said flatly. So, I guess somebody's getting hurt after all. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then all hell broke loose. Natasha held Elliot against her chest as Dominic's black SUV tore through Manhattan traffic, sirens wailing somewhere behind them. Where are we going? She demanded. Elliot was still unconscious, too fragile for this kind of chaos. Monitors and 4 bags rigged up in the back of the vehicle by a medic Dominic had somehow procured. Somewhere Vincent can't find you, Dominic said from the driver's seat, taking a corner so fast Natasha had to grip the door handle. Safe house in Brooklyn. Off the grid. No records, no trail. What about Adrian? Dominic's jaw tightened. He knew what he was doing. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Dominic's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I lost Elena because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't smart enough. I'm not losing her son too. And Adrian made it very clear. Elliot comes first. Natasha looked down at the boy in her arms, this small, sick child who'd somehow become the center of a war he didn't even know he was fighting. His eyes moved behind closed lids, dreaming maybe, or just fighting to heal. He's going to wake up asking for Adrian, she whispered. What do I tell him? Dominic didn't answer. The silence said everything. If you're still watching, drop a comment and tell me you're okay, because I'm stressed. Hit that subscribe button if you need to know these people survive. ***. Adrian's security held the line for 90 seconds. Then Vincent's men brought out the real weapons, not handguns, but automatic rifles pulled from gym bags. Hospital or not, they were done playing. Fall back, Jack shouted, grabbing Adrian's arm and hauling him behind a nurse's station as bullets tore through the air. Glass shattered. Walls exploded in plumes of plaster. The fire alarm added its shriek to the chaos. We can't hold them, one of Adrian's guards shouted, returning fire. We're outgunned. Just need another minute. Adrian gasped, checking his phone. Dominic had texted. *package secure. Clear, *. They'd made it. Elliot was safe. Okay, Adrian said. Fall back to the stairwell. We're done here. They retreated in stages, covering each other, as Vincent's men advanced. By the time they reached the stairwell, Adrian had lost count of how many bullets had come too close. They burst out onto the ground floor just as police flooded the lobby. Real police, not Vincent's corrupted ones. Someone had called the FBI. Adrian stumbled outside into the cold night air, Jack supporting him, his ears ringing and his hands shaking. He started. They're safe, Jack confirmed. Dominic just confirmed arrival at the safe house. Adrian's legs gave out. He sat down hard on the sidewalk, not caring about the chaos around him, the flashing lights, the shouting. Elliot was safe. But Adrian had just declared war on the most dangerous man in New York. And wars had casualties. The FBI agent who interviewed him was named Sarah Harding, mid-40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense. Mr. Bourne, you want to explain why a crime boss's men just shot up a hospital trying to get to a child you're attempting to adopt? Adrian, sitting in an FBI office at 2 a.m. with coffee he wasn't drinking, met her gaze directly. Vincent Corleone believes Elliot Moss is his biological son. He killed the boy's mother 7 years ago to keep her quiet about his criminal operations. Now he wants to eliminate the evidence or claim his heir. I'm not sure which. Harding's eyebrows rose. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. Financial records showing payments to Elena Volkov. Testimony from the FBI handler she was working with. Hospital records showing she gave birth and then died under suspicious circumstances. Adrian leaned forward. You want Vincent Corleone? I'll give him to you. But first, you keep that child safe. We can put him in protective custody.
No.
Adrian's voice was steel. He stays with me. Or rather, with people I trust. Your agency has leaks. Vincent's been bribing federal agents for years. The second Elliot enters the system, Vincent knows where he is. That's not how this works. Then make it work. Adrian stood. Because if anything happens to that boy, if Vincent gets anywhere near him, I'll burn your entire agency to the ground, proving how badly you failed. And I have the money and the lawyers to do it. Harding studied him for a long moment. You really care about this kid? He's my son. The words came out before Adrian could stop them. But once they were spoken, he realized they were true. Paperwork or not, blood relation or not, Elliot was his. In every way that matters, he's my son. And I will do whatever it takes to protect him. Harding nodded slowly. Give me 24 hours. I'll put together a task force. We'll build a case against Vincent that'll put him away for life. But, Mr. Bourne, you need to understand what you're up against. Vincent Corleone has walked away from 4 federal investigations. He's untouchable. Nobody's untouchable, Adrian said. Elena proved that when she started collecting evidence against him. And now I'm going to finish what she started. The safe house was a converted warehouse in Red Hook, nondescript and anonymous. Natasha sat beside Elliot's bed, an actual hospital bed that Dominic had somehow acquired, and watched the boy sleep. The medic, a former army doctor named Kate Barlow, had checked his vitals 3 times in the past hour. He's stable, Kate assured her. Better than stable, actually. That surgery worked. His heart's pumping beautifully. But Elliot was still unconscious, still vulnerable, still the target of a man who saw him as either an asset or a threat. The door opened. Natasha's hand went to the can of pepper spray Dominic had given her, but it was just Adrian. He looked terrible, exhausted, haunted, with blood on his shirt that might or might not be his own. "You're alive," Natasha breathed, standing up. "Barely." Adrian crossed to Elliot, checking him with his own eyes before allowing himself to relax. "How is he?" "Good. Really good. Kate says the surgery was a complete success. But he hasn't woken up yet. The anesthesia, it takes time, especially after such a major operation." Natasha touched his arm. "Adrian, what happened at the hospital?" He told her. All of it. The standoff, the gunfight, the FBI, his deal with Agent Harding. "You gave them everything," Natasha said quietly. "All your leverage against Vincent." "I gave them a chance to stop him. That's different." Adrian looked at her, something raw in his eyes. "I can't do this alone, Natasha. I thought I could throw money at the problem and fix it. But I'm in over my head. I need help. He stopped, jaw working. "You need what?" she prompted gently.
"You," he said.
"I need you. Not as Elliot's social worker. Not as some professional observer. I need you as," he struggled for words, "as someone who gives a damn whether I survive this." Natasha's heart clenched. "Adrian, I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. I know this whole situation is a disaster." His voice cracked. "But when Vincent threatened you today, something inside me broke. Because I realized that somewhere in the past 5 days, you stopped being just another person in my life. You became important," Natasha finished. "You became important to me too." They stood there in the dim warehouse light, the weight of everything between them. Then Elliot stirred. Both of them rushed to the bedside as the boy's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Adrian." Elliot's voice was barely a whisper. "You're here. You kept your promise." "Always," Adrian said, throat tight. "How do you feel?" "Tired. Weird." Elliot's hand found Adrian's. "Did the surgery work?" "Perfectly. Your heart's going to be—" The tunnel was pitch black and freezing. Adrian had Elliot cradled against his chest, one hand supporting the boy's head, the other using his phone's flashlight to illuminate the crumbling passage ahead. Natasha and Kate followed close behind, their breathing harsh in the confined space. "Where does this lead?" Natasha gasped. "Old freight station, 2 blocks west," Adrian said, not slowing down. "Dominic's people have a vehicle waiting." "If he told them to wait," Kate said grimly. "If Vincent's men didn't get there first." Adrian didn't respond. He just kept moving, ignoring the pain in his legs, the burning in his lungs, the way Elliot's weight seemed to double with every step. The boy stirred against his shoulder. "Adrian? What's happening?" "We're going somewhere safe, buddy. Just hold on tight, okay?" "Are the bad men coming?" Adrian's jaw clenched. 7 years old, and already Elliot understood there were bad men in the world. Already he knew what it meant to run. "Yeah," Adrian said honestly. "But we're not going to let them catch us." "Promise." "Promise." They emerged 20 minutes later through a rusted service door into an abandoned freight station. Dawn light filtered through broken skylights. A black van sat idling near the loading dock, Dominic's backup, just like he'd said. The driver was a woman in her 30s, short dark hair, military bearing. "Get in," she ordered. Dominic radioed. "He's holding them off, but he won't last long. We need to move." They piled into the van. The moment the door slammed shut, They were moving, tires squealing as they shot out of the station onto deserted Brooklyn streets. Adrian finally let himself breathe. Elliot was safe in his arms. Natasha was pressed against his side, trembling but alive. Kate was already checking Elliot's vitals, murmuring reassurances. "Where are we going?" Adrian asked the driver. "Someplace Vincent can't reach," she said. "Dominic's been preparing for this. He has a network, safe houses, allies, people who hate Vincent as much as he does." She glanced in the rearview mirror. "You just declared war on the most powerful crime boss in New York, Mr. Bourne. Hope you're ready for what comes next." "I'm ready," Adrian said quietly. "I'm done running. I'm done letting Vincent control this situation. It's time we went on the offense." Natasha looked at him sharply. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Vincent's been untouchable because nobody's had the evidence or the courage to take him down. Elena collected evidence, but she died before she could use it. The FBI built cases, but they fell apart because of corruption." Adrian's voice hardened. "But I have something they didn't. Money, resources, and nothing left to lose." "Adrian, he threatened you. He tried to kill Elliot. He murdered Elena." Adrian's hand tightened around the boy in his arms. "I'm not letting him walk away from this. I'm going to destroy him." The driver, her name tag read Vasquez, smiled grimly. "Dominic said you were either crazy or brilliant. Glad to see it's both." Drop a comment if you're feeling this right now. And subscribe if you want to see how Adrian takes down a literal crime boss, because Part 8 is going to be explosive. ****. The new safe house was a farmhouse 2 hours north of the city, surrounded by woods and protected by a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. Elliot slept through most of the journey, exhausted from the surgery and the chaos. Kate set up a proper recovery room in one of the bedrooms, complete with monitors and medication. Adrian stood in the doorway, watching the boy sleep, feeling the full weight of what he'd taken on. "He's stable," Kate said softly, coming to stand beside him. "Heart function is excellent. Another few days and he'll be out of the danger zone completely." "Good." Adrian's voice was rough. "Thank you for everything. Dominic told me about you before we left the warehouse. Said you were the real deal." Kate studied him. Most people would have run by now. Would have decided this kid wasn't worth dying for. "He's worth everything," Adrian said. "I'm a billionaire with a tech company that specializes in data analysis. I have resources the FBI doesn't." Adrian leaned forward. "But here's the thing, this evidence only works if we can guarantee it reaches the right people. People Vincent can't buy or threaten. So here's what I'm proposing." He outlined his plan. By the time he finished, Harding was shaking her head in disbelief. "That's insane," she said. "Will it work?" "It might actually work." She looked at him with new respect. "You're not just protecting your son. You're trying to take down an entire criminal empire." "Elena started this fight. I'm finishing it." Adrian's voice was steel. "For her. For Elliot. For every person Vincent's hurt over the past 20 years. He doesn't get to win. Not this time." Harding studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll make the calls. But Mr. Bourne? If this goes wrong, if Vincent figures out what we're doing before we can act." "He won't." Adrian's smile was sharp. "Because we're going to give him exactly what he wants." "Which is?" "Me." Natasha, who'd been listening from the doorway, went pale. "Adrian, no. It's the only way." He turned to her, his expression gentle but determined. "Vincent wants me dead because I'm protecting Elliot. So we give him a chance to take me out. We draw him into the open, get him to incriminate himself, and we record everything. Then the FBI moves in with enough evidence to put him away forever. You're talking about using yourself as bait. I'm talking about ending this." Adrian crossed to her, taking her hands. "Natasha, we can't keep running. We can't keep hiding. Elliot deserves better than spending his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for Vincent to find him. This ends now. Tonight." "What about Elliot? What do I tell him when—" She stopped, unable to finish. "You tell him his father kept his promise." Adrian's thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. You tell him he's safe. You tell him. I love him, Natasha finished. I'll tell him I love him. That we both do. Adrian pulled her close, pressing his forehead against hers. I'm coming back. You better, she whispered fiercely. Because I just figured out I'm in love with you, and I'll be really pissed if you die before I get to tell you properly. Adrian's breath caught. You. Love you.
Yes.
I love you. She kissed him hard, desperate, like she could pour all her fear and hope into that one moment. So don't make me a liar. Come back to us. I will, he promised. I swear it. From the bedroom down the hall, Elliot's sleepy voice called out. Adrian? Natasha? They broke apart. Natasha wiped her eyes quickly. Go, Adrian said softly. I'll be there in a minute. She hesitated, then left. Adrian turned back to Harding, his expression shifting from tender to steel. Set it up. Tonight, midnight, the warehouse where Elliot was hiding. Tell Vincent I'll trade myself for guaranteed safety for my son. He won't be able to resist. And you're sure you want to do this? I've never been more sure of anything. Adrian looked toward the bedroom where Elliot was calling for him again. That boy asked me for a mom. I can't give him that. But I can give him a future. And I'm going to. Harding nodded slowly. Your bravery is either going to save a lot of lives or end yours. Then let's make sure it's the first one. Adrian spent the afternoon with Elliot, reading stories and playing quiet games while the boy recovered. Elliot was getting stronger every hour, his color improving, his energy returning. He laughed at Adrian's terrible dinosaur impressions. He begged Natasha to braid his hair like hers. He drew pictures of their family, 3 stick figures holding hands in front of a house. This is us when everything's okay, Elliot said, holding up the drawing. You, me, and Natasha. Together. Adrian's throat tightened. Yeah, buddy. That's us. Are the bad men still looking for us? Adrian considered lying. But Elliot deserved the truth. Yes, he said. But not for much longer. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt you anymore.
How?
By being brave. Like you were when you grabbed my wrist at that party. Adrian touched the boy's hand gently. You taught me something that night, Elliot. You taught me that sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. Did I help you? You saved me, Adrian said honestly. And now I'm going to save you right back. Elliot smiled, content, and went back to his drawing. That evening, as the sun set and shadows lengthened across the farmhouse, Adrian stood in the doorway watching Natasha tuck Elliot into bed. She sang softly, a lullaby Adrian didn't recognize, and the boy's eyes slowly drifted closed. When she emerged, closing the door quietly behind her, her eyes were red. He asked me if you were his real dad now, she whispered. I told him yes. That as soon as the paperwork went through, it would be official. That you'd be his forever. I will be, Adrian said. No matter what happens tonight. Adrian, I need you to promise me something. He gripped her shoulders. If this goes wrong, if I don't come back, you'll take care of him. You'll make sure he grows up safe and loved and knowing that he mattered. That he changed everything. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Don't ask me to promise that. Ask me to believe you're coming back instead. I am coming back. But just in case. I promise, she choked out. I promise I'll love him like my own. But you have to promise me something too. Anything. Promise me you'll fight like hell to survive. Promise me you won't play hero and sacrifice yourself because you think that's what he needs. He needs you alive, Adrian. We both do. I promise, he said. I'm coming home to both of you. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of every word they hadn't had time to say. When they pulled apart, Harding was standing in the kitchen doorway, looking uncomfortable. It's time, she said quietly. Vincent took the bait. He'll be at the warehouse at midnight. Adrian nodded. He looked at Natasha one more time, memorizing her face. Then he turned and walked out into the night, heading toward what might be his last battle. Behind him, Natasha sank to the floor and let herself cry, for the boy sleeping peacefully down the hall, for the man she'd fallen in love with in the span of 5 impossible days, and for the family they might never get to be. The warehouse was exactly as Adrian remembered it: cold, cavernous, smelling of oil and rust and old violence. He stood in the center of the space, surrounded by shadows, wearing a wire so thin it was invisible. Around the perimeter, hidden in the rafters and behind shipping containers, FBI agents waited with weapons and recording equipment. Agent Harding's voice came through his earpiece. "We're in position. Remember, get him to admit everything. We need confession on record. Murder, conspiracy, threats against a minor. Give us enough, and we can put him away forever." "Understood," Adrian murmured. His hands were shaking. He forced them still. At 11:58 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Doors opened. Men emerged, at least 15 of them, all armed, all professional. And then Vincent Corleone himself stepped out of the middle vehicle, straightening his suit jacket like he was arriving at the opera instead of a confrontation. He walked into the warehouse alone, his men hanging back. "Mr. Bourne," Vincent said pleasantly. "Punctual. I appreciate that in a man." "Let's skip the pleasantries," Adrian said. "You know why I'm here." "Indeed. You've agreed to trade your life for my son's safety. Admirably noble. Also incredibly stupid." Vincent circled him slowly, a predator assessing prey. "Do you really think I'll honor that deal? That I'll let the boy go just because you sacrifice yourself?"
No.
Adrian's voice was steady. "I think you're a liar and a murderer who'll do whatever serves you best. But I'm betting on something else." "Oh, what's that?" "Your ego." Adrian turned to face him. "You've spent 20 years being untouchable. 20 years watching people fear you, bow to you, run from you. And then I showed up, some nobody from the foster system who became a billionaire through actual work instead of crime, and I didn't run. I stood up to you. I protected your son from you." Vincent's expression darkened. "Careful, Mr. Bourne. That eats at you, doesn't it? That someone finally said no. That someone finally chose that boy over fear of you." Adrian stepped closer, voice hardening. "Elena said no. She chose her son over you. And you killed her for it." "Elena was a traitor. Elena was a mother." Adrian's shout echoed through the warehouse. "She was a woman you got pregnant and then threatened. A woman who loved her child enough to give him up, to die protecting him, because she knew you'd destroy him just like you destroy everything you touch." Vincent's hand moved to his jacket. Adrian saw 2 red lasers appear on Vincent's chest, FBI snipers in the rafters. "I wouldn't," Adrian said quietly. "You're surrounded. FBI agents, recording equipment, enough evidence being compiled right now to put you away for 5 consecutive life sentences. You move wrong, you die. But if you're smart, if you're the brilliant criminal mastermind everyone says you are, you'll talk to me instead." Vincent froze. His eyes darted around the warehouse, seeing nothing but knowing Adrian wasn't blinking. "You set me up," Vincent said slowly. "I gave you exactly what you wanted. A chance to confront me. A chance to prove you're still the most dangerous man in New York." Adrian's smile was cold. "You just forgot that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one with nothing left to lose. You think the FBI can touch me? I own half. You owned half the NYPD. Past tense." Adrian pulled out his phone, showing Vincent a news feed. 3 hours ago, federal warrants were issued for 12 police officers, for judges, and 2 city councilmen. All on your payroll. All arrested simultaneously based on 7 years of financial evidence compiled by Elena Volkov and updated by my forensic accountants. Vincent's face went white. "Your network is burning as we speak," Adrian continued. "Every person you bought, every official you corrupted, every threat you made, it's all documented. All provable. All admissible in court." He pocketed his phone. "You're done, Vincent. The only question now is whether you go quietly or whether you make it worse." "You can't." Vincent's composure finally cracked. "That boy is my son. My blood. You have no right." "I have every right." Adrian's voice cracked like a whip. Because Elliot asked me to be his father, and I said yes. Because I've been there for his surgery, held his hand through his fear, promised him a future you would have destroyed. Blood doesn't make you a parent, Vincent. Love does.
Sacrifice does.
Showing up does. Love. Vincent laughed bitterly. You've known him for less than a week. And in that week I've done more for him than you've done in 7 years. I've given him hope, safety, a family. Adrian's voice dropped. Elena died to keep him away from you. I'm making sure her sacrifice meant something. Vincent's hand moved again toward his jacket. Don't. Agent Harding's voice rang out as she emerged from behind a shipping container, weapon drawn. Vincent Corleone, you're under arrest for murder, conspiracy, racketeering, and threats against a minor. You have the right to remain silent. This isn't over. Vincent snarled as FBI agents swarmed him. You think you've won? I have lawyers. Your lawyers are currently being investigated for obstruction of justice, Harding said calmly, cuffing him. Your accountants flipped on you for immunity deals. Your safe houses have been raided. Your money's been frozen. Your empire is rubble, Mr. Corleone. And it all came down because of one woman brave enough to collect evidence and one man brave enough to finish what she started. Vincent looked at Adrian with pure hatred. He'll never be yours.
He's my son.
My blood. He's his own person, Adrian interrupted. And when he's old enough to understand everything, I'll tell him about Elena, about how much she loved him, about how brave she was. And I'll tell him that you were nothing but a monster she died protecting him from. He leaned in close. You lost, Vincent. You lost your son, your empire, and your freedom. And the last thing you'll think about every day in prison is that you did this to yourself. FBI agents hauled Vincent away, his protests fading as they dragged him toward the waiting vehicles. Adrian stood there, adrenaline crashing, hands shaking, barely able to believe it was over. Harding appeared at his elbow. You did it. We've got him on record admitting to Elena's murder, to threatening Elliot, to corruption. Plus 7 years of financial evidence. He's going away forever. Elliot's safe? Adrian asked hoarsely. Elliot's safe. The threat is neutralized. She smiled slightly. You're a hell of a negotiator, Mr. Bourne. Ever considered a career in law enforcement? I'll stick to being a dad, thanks. If you're crying right now, drop a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because Part 9 is going to bring this home in the most beautiful way possible. Asterisk, asterisk. Adrian made it back to the farmhouse at 2 a.m. The moment he walked through the door, Natasha launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck and holding on like she'd never let go. You're alive, she sobbed into his shoulder. Oh God, you're alive. I promised, he murmured, holding her just as tightly. I promised I'd come back. Vincent. In custody. It's over. He's going to prison for the rest of his life. Adrian pulled back enough to see her face. Elliot's safe. We're all safe. It's really over. Natasha kissed him then, fierce and desperate and full of relief. When they finally broke apart, she was laughing and crying at the same time. I love you, she said. I know it's crazy and fast, and we've only known each other for 5 days, but I love you, and I need you to know that. I love you too, Adrian said, and realized he meant it with every fiber of his being. I think I started falling the moment you called me an idiot for thinking I could take on a crime boss. She laughed. You are an idiot, but you're my idiot now. Is he awake? Adrian asked, nodding toward Elliot's room.
No.
Sleeping peacefully for the first time since the surgery. I didn't want to wake him until... She stopped, fresh tears spilling. Until I knew you were okay. Adrian took her hand. Together, they walked to Elliot's room. The boy was curled up in bed, one of Adrian's spare t-shirts serving as pajamas, the stick figure drawing of their family clutched in one hand. His heart monitor beeped steadily, strong, healthy, alive. He drew 6 more pictures this evening, Natasha whispered. All of us. Our family. He told me he's never been this happy in his whole life. Adrian's throat closed up. He sat down carefully on the edge of the bed, reaching out to brush the hair from Elliot's forehead. The boy stirred at the touch, eyes fluttering open. For a moment, he looked confused. Then he saw Adrian and his whole face lit up. "You came back." "Always," Adrian promised. "I'll always come back to you." "Are the bad men gone?" "Yeah, buddy. They're gone. We're safe now. All of us." Elliot processed this, then looked past Adrian to where Natasha stood in the doorway. "Both of you?" "Both of us," Natasha confirmed, coming to sit on the other side of the bed. Elliot looked between them, something hopeful and scared warring in his expression. "So, does this mean are you guys my parents now? For real?" Adrian glanced at Natasha. She nodded, eyes shining. "Yeah," Adrian said, his voice rough with emotion. "We're your parents. For real. Forever. If that's okay with you." "Okay." Elliot's voice cracked. That's all I ever wanted. Since forever. Just someone to want me." "We more than want you," Natasha said, taking his hand. "We love you, Elliot. Both of us. So much it's kind of scary." "I love you too." Elliot looked at Adrian. "Does this mean I can call you Dad?" The word hit Adrian like a freight train, Dad. Something he'd never been called, never thought he'd be called, never imagined he deserved to be called. "Yeah," he managed. "You can call me Dad." Elliot smiled, the biggest, brightest smile Adrian had ever seen, and then the kid was crying and laughing and launching himself into Adrian's arms. Adrian held him, this small, brave, impossibly precious boy who'd grab his wrist at a gala and changed his entire life. Natasha wrapped her arms around both of them, and for a moment they just stayed there, a family cobbled together from broken pieces, held together by choice and love and determination. "We're going to be okay," Elliot whispered. "Aren't we?" "Better than okay," Adrian promised. "We're going to be amazing." And for the first time in his entire life, Adrian Bourne believed in happy endings. 1 month later, the adoption was finalized. The courtroom was small, intimate, filled with people who'd become part of their unlikely story. Dominic sat in the front row, his arm in a sling but his smile genuine. Agent Harding was there, off-duty, having developed a strange friendship with Adrian over the weeks of testimony against Vincent. Kate, the medic, had flown in just for this. Even Vasquez, the driver, showed up with flowers. Judge Thompson, one of the few judges in New York Vincent hadn't corrupted, looked down at them with kind eyes. "Mr. Bourne, Ms. Ripley," she said. "I've reviewed your case extensively. The home study, the character references, the financial disclosures. I've also read Elliot's letter about why he wants you to be his parents." She smiled. It was very persuasive. Elliot, sitting between Adrian and Natasha in his best button-up shirt, grinned. "I've also reviewed the extraordinary circumstances of this case," the judge continued. "The threats, the danger, the lengths you both went to protect this child. And I have to say, in 30 years on the bench, I've never seen a clearer example of what it means to be a parent. Not through biology, but through choice. Through love. Through showing up every single day and fighting for your child's future." Adrian felt Natasha's hand tighten around his. "Therefore," Judge Thompson said, "it is my honor to grant this adoption. Adrian Bourne, Natasha Ripley, you are now the legal parents of Elliot Bourne. Congratulations." The gavel came down. Elliot hooped, throwing his arms around both of them. The courtroom erupted in applause. Adrian found himself crying, actual tears, something he hadn't done since he was 6 years old and his mother died. Natasha was crying too, kissing Elliot's head, then Adrian's cheek, laughing through her tears. "We're a family," Elliot said wonderingly. "Like, officially." "Officially," Adrian confirmed. "You're stuck with us now, kid." "Good," Elliot said fiercely. "Because I'm never letting you go." The media had a field day with the story. "Billionaire takes down crime boss to protect adopted son," screamed the headlines. "Tech mogul becomes dad, saves child from mob." The adoption that changed everything. Adrian ignored most of it. He was too busy learning how to be a father, packing school lunches badly, helping with homework adequately, reading bedtime stories surprisingly well, and attending every single one of Elliot's follow-up cardiology appointments. Dr. Connor, at one of those appointments, pulled Adrian aside. His heart function is perfect. Better than perfect, actually. Whatever trauma that boy experienced before you adopted him, it's healing. Not just physically. He's resilient, Adrian said, watching Elliot show Natasha a drawing he'd made in the waiting room. No, Dr. Connor corrected gently. He's loved. There's a difference. Natasha had moved into Adrian's penthouse 2 weeks after the adoption finalized. They'd converted one of the guest rooms into Elliot's space, filling it with books and art supplies and a telescope for stargazing. The boys' drawings covered the refrigerator, the walls, every available surface. At night, after Elliot was asleep, Adrian and Natasha would sit on the balcony overlooking Manhattan and marvel at how much their lives had changed. I still can't believe this is real, Natasha said one evening, her head on Adrian's shoulder. 5 weeks ago, I was a social worker evaluating your fitness to parent. Now I'm my fiancé, Adrian finished, touching the ring he'd given her 3 days ago. Simple, elegant, perfect. And Elliot's mom. And the love of my life. That escalated quickly. You complained about the speed? She laughed. Not even a little bit. Her expression sobered. Adrian, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever regret it? Taking him on? Everything that happened with Vincent, the danger, the chaos? Adrian thought about that night at the gala, about Elliot's cold hand on his wrist, those 5 desperate words, I just want a mom, about the choice he'd made in that moment to say yes when everyone else had said no. Not for a second, he said. Elliot saved me just as much as I saved him. Maybe more. How do you figure? Because before him, I was just existing. Building things, making money, trying to prove I mattered because nobody ever told me I did. I was successful, but I was empty. He looked at her. And then this kid grabbed my arm and asked for the one thing I'd spent my whole life wanting. Someone to choose him. Someone to fight for him. Someone to love him. His voice roughened. How could I say no to that? How could I walk away from the chance to be the person I needed when I was his age? Natasha kissed him softly. You're a good man, Adrian Bourne. I'm a work in progress. But I'm trying. That's all any of us can do. Final part coming up. Drop a comment if this story has wrecked you in the best way, and make sure you're subscribed because the conclusion is going to tie everything together perfectly. Asterisk, asterisk. 3 months after the adoption, Adrian received a letter. It came through his lawyer, standard procedure for mail from prisons. The return address was a federal penitentiary upstate. The sender was Vincent Corleone. Adrian almost threw it away without reading it, but something made him open it instead. Mr. Bourne. Asterisk, I've had time to think in here. Time to reflect on choices made, opportunities lost, lives destroyed. I won't insult you with apologies. We both know I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm only sorry I got caught. Asterisk. Asterisk, but I need you to know something about Elena. About my son. Asterisk. Asterisk, I loved her. In my own broken way, I loved her. She was brilliant, beautiful, fierce. She saw through my lies, called out my cruelty, refused to bend. And when she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. Because I knew that any child of mine would be in danger. From my enemies, my allies, even from me. Asterisk. Asterisk, so I did what I do best. I destroyed the threat. I had her killed. I told myself it was necessary, that it was survival, that it was the smart move. Asterisk. I was wrong. Asterisk, every day in this cell, I think about the son I never knew. About the life he might have had if I'd been a different person. A better person. And every day, I'm grateful that he has you instead. Asterisk. Asterisk, you did what I couldn't. You chose love over fear. Sacrifice over survival. You became the father I should have been. Asterisk. Asterisk, Elliot will never be mine. He shouldn't be. But somewhere in this wasted life, knowing that he's safe, that he's loved, that he has a real family, it's the closest thing to redemption I'll ever get. Asterisk. Asterisk, take care of my son, Mr. Bourne. Give him the life Elena died trying to secure for him. And tell him, if he ever asks, that his mother was the bravest person I ever knew. Asterisk.
V.C.
Adrian read the letter 3 times, then filed it away in a locked drawer. Someday, when Elliot was older, when he had questions about where he came from, Adrian would show it to him. Let him decide what it meant, what Vincent had been, what Elena had sacrificed. But not today. Today, Elliot was 8 years old and healthy and happy. Today was enough. 1 year later, Adrian stood in the kitchen of their new home. Not the penthouse, but an actual house in Westchester with a backyard and a tire swing and neighbors who baked cookies, and watched his family through the window. Elliot, now 8 and thriving, was teaching Natasha how to throw a football. His form was terrible. Her form was worse. They were both laughing so hard they could barely stand. Adrian smiled, pulling the lasagna from the oven. Cooking was still a work in progress. He'd burned 3 dinners this week alone, but he was learning. They all were.
Dad.
Elliot burst through the back door, cheeks flushed with cold and happiness. Did you see? I threw it like 15 feet.
I saw.
Very impressive. Adrian ruffled his hair. Wash up. Dinner's almost ready. Natasha followed Elliot inside, wrapping her arms around Adrian's waist from behind. You're getting better at this domestic thing. Only slightly. Pretty sure I burned the garlic bread. We'll order pizza if it's inedible, she said, kissing his shoulder. That's what delivery apps are for. Elliot reappeared, hands washed, and climbed onto his chair at the kitchen table, the one they'd picked out together at a furniture store, arguing good-naturedly about wood stains and whether they needed 6 chairs or 8. Can I tell you guys something? Elliot asked as Adrian set plates down. Always, Natasha said, sitting beside him. My teacher asked us to write about our family today. About what makes them special. Elliot pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Can I read mine? Adrian's throat tightened. Of course. Elliot smoothed out the paper, his voice clear and proud. My family is special because they chose me. A year ago, I was sick and nobody wanted me. I thought I would never have a mom or dad. Then I met Adrian at a party, and I asked him for help, and he said yes. He gave me a new heart, not just the surgery kind, but the love kind too. Then Natasha became my mom and taught me that families don't have to match to be real. They fought bad people to keep me safe. They read me stories and help with homework and make terrible pancakes on Sundays. They tell me I'm brave and smart and worth everything. My family is special because they taught me that love isn't about blood. It's about showing up. And they show up every single day. By the time Elliot finished reading, both Adrian and Natasha were crying. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Natasha managed, pulling him into a hug. Adrian couldn't speak. He just reached across the table and took his son's hand, his son, legally and completely and forever, and held on. I got an A, Elliot added proudly. That broke the tension. They all laughed, the moment shifting from tears to joy, the way it always did in their house. Messy, imperfect, but overflowing with love. After dinner, after dishes, after Elliot's homework was checked and his teeth were brushed, Adrian and Natasha tucked him into bed together. Story? Elliot asked hopefully. Your pick, Adrian said, gesturing to the overflowing bookshelf they'd built together. Elliot considered, then shook his head. Tell me a real story instead.
About you and Mom.
About how you met. Adrian and Natasha exchanged glances. They'd told him pieces before, but never the whole truth. Never the danger, the fear, the desperate fight to protect him. You sure you want to hear it? Natasha asked gently.
Yeah.
Because kids at school ask how I got adopted. And I want to tell them the real story. About how my dad fought a bad guy to save me. About how my mom was brave enough to love us both. Elliot's eyes were serious. I want to tell them my family story. So they did. They told him about the gala, about the cold hand on Adrian's wrist, about 5 desperate words that changed everything. They told him about the surgery, about Vincent, about the warehouse showdown. They softened the violence, focused on the bravery, but they didn't lie. Your birth mother loved you so much she gave you up to keep you safe, Adrian explained. And your birth father. He made terrible choices. But he's in prison now. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Do I look like them? Elliot asked quietly. A little, Natasha said. You have your birth mother's eyes. Elena, that was her name. She was brave and smart, just like you. Will I ever meet my birth father? Adrian's jaw tightened. That's your choice. When you're older, if you want to, we'll make it happen. But you never have to if you don't want to. Elliot thought about this, then nodded. Maybe someday. Just to know where I came from. He looked between them. But you're my real parents. The ones who matter. Always, Adrian promised. Elliot yawned, settling into his pillows. I'm glad I grabbed your wrist that night. Me too, buddy. Best decision of my life. Mine too, Natasha added, kissing his forehead. Sweet dreams, sweetheart. They turned off the light, leaving just the night light, shaped like a star, glowing softly. At the door, Elliot's sleepy voice reached them. Dad? Mom? They turned back. Yeah. Thank you for wanting me. Adrian's vision blurred. Thank you for giving us the chance to love you. They closed the door softly and stood in the hallway, holding each other. We did good, Natasha whispered. We did amazing, Adrian corrected. Later that night, after Natasha had fallen asleep, Adrian stood in Elliot's doorway watching his son sleep, something he did most nights, still unable to quite believe this was real. His phone buzzed. A message from Dominic. Asterisk heard through the grapevine Vincent's appeals were all denied.
He's never getting out.
Thought you'd want to know. Asterisk. Adrian typed back. Asterisk thank you. For everything. Asterisk. Asterisk Elena would be proud of what you did. What you're still doing.
Take care of her boy. Asterisk.
Always. Adrian pocketed his phone and looked at Elliot one more time. The boy had kicked off his covers, he always did. Adrian walked over, gently tucking him back in. Elliot stirred, eyes fluttering open.
Dad.
Just checking on you. Go back to sleep. Stay for a minute? Adrian sat on the edge of the bed. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Elliot's smile was sleepy and content. I just wanted to make sure this wasn't a dream. That you're really here. I'm really here. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. Elliot's eyes drifted closed again. Within seconds, he was asleep. Adrian sat there for a long time, watching his son breathe, feeling the weight and wonder of this life they'd built. A year ago, he'd been empty, successful but hollow. Now he had everything that mattered. He thought about that moment at the gala, the cold hand, the desperate plea, the choice to say yes when it would have been easier to say no. Best decision of his life. He stood, kissed Elliot's forehead one more time, and whispered, I love you, son. Then he turned off the star nightlight and walked back to his bedroom, where Natasha was waiting, where his life was waiting, where everything he'd ever wanted without knowing he wanted it was waiting. And Adrian Bourne, former foster kid, self-made billionaire, and now, most importantly, father, finally understood what it meant to be home. Thank you so much for reading this story. If it touched your heart, please leave a comment telling me your favorite moment. I read every single one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button so you never miss another story that'll wreck you in the best possible way. Until next time, remember, family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. It's about who fights for you. It's about love. Asterisk, asterisk. See you in the next one.